September is usually the month where, we've actually finished with all the blockbuster films, your tentpole movies, and now we're just kind of, giving out some of the more movies that didn't get to play during the summer. I don't think I've ever seen so many weird random movies than I did in 1995.
Starting transmission.
So I'm going to go ahead and kind of break this up a little bit into three different categories. We're going to have our coming of age movies, our horror movies, and our thrillers. So, looking at our coming of age movies that came out in 1995, we have three really great coming of age films that I think are very much reminiscent of that era. So, first up, we have the movie Angus.
Angus.
So, Angus is actually based on the short story A Brief Moment in the Life of Angus Bethune. So, that's the original short story that this movie is based off of. And the story is your typical story of a boy who's actually fallen head over heels for the most popular girl in school. And then, by happenstance, he is actually given the chance to go to the dance with the most popular girl at the school. And from there, it becomes like a story of him and his friends who are now pretty much at odds with the cool kids at school. So it's a really fun coming of age story. It's much has a lot of heart, a lot of humor in it. And you know what? I think this is one that's kind of overlooked by the mainstream. Trust me, if you've never seen Angus, I would say go ahead and check this one out because this is one of those heartfelt movies that, it just kind of like transcends time too. So you could watch this one back in the 90s and have a completely similar feel if you're watching it today. So that's what I'm recommending that if you haven't seen Angus, go check this one out. Next up, we have a movie that I would call Clerks in a Record Store, but way better soundtrack, if you ask me. That is Empire Records, came out in 1995.
Gina, Roy, Lucas, AJ. The staff of Empire Records had the coolest jobs on earth. Empire Records.
And this is the story about a small little record store which is going out of business. And it's like the last hurrah, the last day as the store is trying to save itself. And there's some really crazy stories around this movie. So, like, first up, the writer of this movie actually worked for Tower Records in Christown Mall here in Arizona. So, a lot of the stories and a lot of the antidotes for this film actually are based on his real life experience working for Tower Records. And it's really cool to see that there are people that used to work at that Tower Records at Christown Mall, and they can tell you that, yeah, I kind of remember these stories. We kind of lived through some of these experiences, and they can actually like reflect on those times, and that's really cool. And I think that's why I'm calling it the Clerks in a Record Store, because like Clerks was all based off the life of Kevin Smith and stories that him and his buddies dealt with, stories that him and his buddies like went through working in the convenience store. So in that retrospect, that's why I'm kind of calling this the Clerks in the Record Store. But actually, I think, like I said, Empire Records has an amazing soundtrack that is very reminiscent of the 90s. And if you had never heard any of the songs on here, I don't know what to say. You need to go check these out. You need to go check out the soundtrack and listen to some of these great classics. In addition, this movie also takes place on April 8th. And one of the interesting things about that date is that it is considered the day that the 90s music died in a way. Why is that, you're asking yourself? Well, this is actually the day that they actually found Kurt Cobain's body. And that's why this movie has like a very profound effect on the 90s, because it's like you're not only watching this movie take place on the store is going to close on April 8th, it's the death of these record stores, these mom and pop record stores. And also in real life, you have the whole effect that the death of Kurt Cobain had on the industry, on grunge music, on the music industry as a whole. It's just a crazy like coincidence and everything like that. And it's very important to like, and it was very important for this writer to actually kind of feed into the date and kind of like show the importance of what April 8th stood for. And it would also makes this movie kind of crazy too, is that on April 8th, there are screenings around the world that are for Empire Records. So heck, checking your local town on April 8th, you might actually find out there is some special screening because, like I said, this is a celebrated film. And there are always some kind of little convention or little film festival going on that surrounds Empire Records. Our next film isn't quite a coming of age story, but it's very reminiscent of all those classic sports movies that we saw in the 90s. You know, the films like Little Giants, The Sandlot, all those kid sports movies about the underdogs. So this film is called The Big Green.
The story of the worst soccer team
We don't play soccer.
to ever hit the field.
Oh, you're showing such potential. Is that the team we're playing?
They got little kids and girls on the team.
Walt Disney Pictures' The Big Green.
This is the soccer movie, which, like I said, is pretty much very similar to all the other films. I mean, I feel like this is more like their Mighty Ducks or Little Giants compared to Sandlot. And this movie even has a lot of the actors that you probably saw in The Sandlot and Little Giants. So it's really funny. It's one of those Disney movies. It's very much a heartfelt movie. A bunch of ragtag team of little kids who are just not your perfect soccer team basically come together. It's a fun, feel good movie. And if you've never seen this one, I would say check it out. Especially if you like the Mighty Ducks or if you even liked like Little Giants or any of those that came out around this time too. Now, jumping on over to our horror movies that came out in September of 95. Now, this is the month before Halloween, and you kind of expect to be some horror movies. But, I mean, there's a wide range of movies. You kind of see the death of the slasher films in this era, and that's how I feel. Like, this is right before the resurgence with Scream a few years later. So I'm like kind of this like when the slasher films had their little bit of life left. So that's around this era. And we got some more like biblical horror too. So starting with the more religious horror movies that came out around that time, we had The Prophecy. And this is the film that stars Christopher Walken and
Christopher Walken. The Prophecy.
so this film basically begins with a detective who's investigating a murder. And his murder has some kind of weird like religious undertones to it, like a religious cult type undertones. Then we find out that one of the archangels of Gabriel's is actually responsible for this. And basically, the detective is caught in between two different warring sides of angels. And you have Gabriel, who's like your killer angel in this scenario, who basically has just lost all faith, and he's like going to war with mankind because he's upset that mankind is the favorite. Man, this movie is crazy. And if you've never seen The Prophecy, I recommend check this one out. The first two are pretty good. There's a third and a fourth. They're, yeah. But this movie is weird. It's bizarre. Christopher Walken does an amazing job in this movie as like that villain yet psychotic like killer, and like it's just very menacing. Just so menacing overall. But yeah, this is one of those films that spawned a little small franchise in the late 90s. And I don't believe many people ever talk about it anymore. So now let's get into the sequels. So also that came out this year is a movie that goes by two different names. It's either Texas Chainsaw Massacre: The Next Generation or The Return of the Texas Chainsaw Massacre.
Genuinely scary and sharply self-satirical, Leatherface has a lot in common with the gender-bending killer in The Silence of the Lambs.
You want scared? Have a look behind you.
The Return of the Texas Chainsaw Massacre.
Yeah, this movie has two very unique names. When it was originally going to be released, it was called The Return of the Texas Chainsaw Massacre. But when it got delayed and everything like that, that's when they ended up changing its name to Texas Chainsaw Massacre: The Next Generation. And this movie, I don't even know what to say about this movie. This movie is just bonkers all around. And I actually remember seeing this when I was way too young to actually watch this movie. Because there's some stuff that happens in this movie that's just really crazy. And there's some stuff that, now looking back, kind of makes more sense on why the movie was very bonkers. So the movie starred Matthew McConaughey and Renee Zellweger. And yeah, this is like their first film, really, like one of their early films. Like, even to the point where these two actors, when this movie was actually finally released, didn't want their names associated with this movie. So This movie deals with a group of teenagers who are going to prom. And on their way to prom, they kind of break down. Their car breaks down, and they get involved with basically the Sawyer family, whose name was actually changed to the Slaughter family. I, who knows? I don't understand why that is. That makes no sense. They're like, hey, this is a sequel, but guess what? They're not called the Sawyers no more. They're called the Slaughters. It's really dumb. It's really dumb in my opinion. And like this is like Renee Zellweger's like big screen debut, and she's just like, yeah, it's. I don't like putting down actors like that, but like, it's not great. And then we have Matthew McConaughey, who's like playing the head of the family, who has like some weird robotic leg that has like special power, like special juice in it that's like making him more robotic. And he's like, and you hear the like going through as they're walking around. It's so crazy of a movie. And that's not the only thing that's crazy about this movie. No, there is like the Illuminati's involved in there. The Men in Black are involved in this. There's conspiracy theories about the Slaughter family being around for ages, and they were responsible for some crazy government stuff. And they keep them around to keep the population in control. It's just, uh, this movie's bonkers. If you've never seen Texas Chainsaw Massacre: The Next Generation, I recommend you go check this one out because, whew, this is a bonker movie that's wants to be the original, but also wanted to be something very 90s like, should I say. So next up, we have Halloween 6, The Curse of Michael Myers. This is actually the final film in like that movie run. So before all the reboots and remakes and all that stuff happened later on. So this is that last film in that series. And this movie even had a crazy production start too, because the previous movie left off on a big cliffhanger with his Men in Black kidnapping uh oh kidnapping Jamie Strode, so the little girl, and taking her away. So that's where that movie ended, and this movie is like, where do we go from here? And they went there. They went to really crazy places. Like I said, this is called The Curse of Michael Myers. And in this movie, we're introduced to the Cult of Thorn, a crazy cult that just deals with um, basically creating the boogeyman. And like Michael Myers has been cursed since childhood to actually murder like his whole family line. So it's the whole part. Jamie Strode, Jamie's character is actually killed off in the very beginning of the movie after, and it's like I think it takes place like 6 years or so after the last movie. So that's kind of gives you an idea when that takes place. Yeah, Jamie's having a child in this cult, and then after her baby's born, she's murdered by Michael Myers, and then like just it just goes bonkers off the rails there. We have this is actually Donald Pleasant's very last movie in general too. So he dies in real life, and then because of that, there's some scenes that had to the scenes are used different takes on different scenes because he died during the production, and then they had to actually then they try to tie this into the original movie by bringing in Tommy Doyle. So the little boy that survives the very first movie is down in this movie, and he's played by the vampire Paul Rudd. So and yeah, so Paul Rudd's in this movie. He's playing Tommy Doyle, and this is his first movie. And whew, got to give it to him. He really went for it. He's a crazy conspiracy theorist, and there's all this craziness. He's trying to figure out the Cult of Thorn, and he's like learning all about Michael Myers and stuff like that. So he already knows just as much as we do, and he ends up teaming up with Donald Pleasance, and then we find out there's some weird plot where the Strode family ends up moving into the old Michael Myers house again. Don't know why. And of course, Michael Myers has to kill everybody in his family line, which is actually weird too, because his family line is the Myers. And with Jamie Strode being dead, technically, then everybody in his family line is dead, but then there's his baby. So the movie is essentially just him trying to kill. That's just weird. That's just crazy to think about. So we won't go there. But yeah, this is a crazy movie, and if you've never seen this one, I do recommend you check it out just for the nostalgic factor and just the campiness, because this is a really fun ride in many ways. This is actually, I believe, might have been I want to say the first or second Michael Myers movie I ever saw. Because I think I saw the original one before this. I saw Season of the Witch, so this actually might have been the next one I saw. And I remember being very confused on what the heck was going on. 'Cause I'm like, wait, they're a cult, and it's funny that the Call of Thorn has actually been ingrained in my brain so much that I always thought that was part of the whole franchise until I actually went down and actually sat and watched all the Halloween movies. So that's just crazy. But yep, Halloween 6 is turning 30 this year. Whew, that's just crazy. So now we're going on to our thriller films. So these are the movies I'm going to consider like thriller, your more drama type films here that came out 30 years ago. And first up, we have Hackers.
Freeze! Hackers.
This is a very different movie than I ever thought I to actually remember it being. Because I remember when I saw this when I was younger that it was very cool and very like hip and everything, and it's so different of a movie. The movie stars Matthew Lillard, Angelina Jolie, and Johnny Lee Miller. So yeah, these are like a group of young hackers that are trying to take down like the secret government and these other evil hackers and other evil geniuses that have like Penn one of those evil hackers and everything like that. And it's the style of this movie is very unique and very 90s because they went kind of with a cyberpunk look. So you see the evil hackers are wearing business suits and everything like that, and your good hackers are like more like cyberpunk style. You know, the more over the top clothing, the craziness, and I don't know. This movie like touches on a lot of different themes and very unique themes too. But overall, this movie is just a fun watch that if you've never seen Hackers, I recommend you go check this one out because I think this is just one that's overlooked. And it's Matthew Lillard's one of his earlier works, and he's amazing in this movie. Like Angelina Jolie's one of her earlier works too, and she's so great in this movie too. But yeah, like I said, I think this movie is just overlooked and nobody really talks about it. And you know, it's a nice, fun ride of a movie. And then I recommend you check out because there's a lot in here that I don't want to spoil or like tarnish your first impression of the movie. So if you've never seen Hackers, I recommend you go check this one out. And last but not least, coming out 30 years ago, another thriller that just, made everybody take notice of a young director named David Fincher. And that was Seven.
Gluttony,
You're going to come take a look at this.
greed,
No one touches anything.
sloth, wrath, pride, lust, and envy. 7. You can expect 5 more of these.
7.
Seven is a story about two detectives who are on the case of a serial killer named John Doe. And John Doe is basically the seventh deadly sins killer. So these two detectives are finding these bodies that are all based off one of the 7 deadly sins. And this movie is just amazing. The cinematography in the movie is great. The acting is great. Morgan Freeman, Brad Pitt, and Kevin Spacey have done an amazing job in this movie. Overall, the story is just like fascinating. The special effects in this movie are crazy too. Because when you see the actual 7 deadly sin, the bodies of the 7 deadly sins, it's just like, whoa, how did they get away with that stuff? A lot of jump scares. Because I can tell you, there's one major jump scare in this movie that freaked the heck out of me. One thing about David Fincher, though, he did an amazing job with this movie. And in the movie, if you didn't know this, there's like a subliminal message or image in the movie that that is for one split second. The one of the more recent version of the movie, at the 2 hour and 13-second mark, you go see like a brief image or something. And another version of the movie, it's in the 1 hour, 52 minutes, and 53-second mark, you'll see a little brief image. I think it's just crazy. There's like something like a subliminal message that they put in this movie that just make you unnerving, In addition to this movie, there was also a comic book that came out years later from Zenescope that is actually the story of John Doe. And there's an actual trade of this, and it's basically each of the 7 deadly sins. And this is actually a really cool companion piece to the movie. So you can actually read along with this book while watching the movie as they find each of the bodies, and it kind of gives you more of an idea what was going on in John Doe's head and everything like that. It's just so like cool to think about. What this movie is really known for is actually, I got a little prop here because As you can see right here, it says right there, what's in the box. So this actually was so great to think about. Loot, not Loot Crate. So I actually got this with my band box. So band box was a mystery box that had a lot of collectibles and actually had a lot of different like props and not like props, like they had a lot of objects in their boxes that was kind of based off movies and memorabilia, like handmade items. And in this box, it have a little box here, and I have a little box here. You can see right here, it kind of says fragile, handle with care. On the top of the box says, "What's in the box?" Based on the famous scene at the end. And I'll just open it for you and I'll just show you what's inside the box. It's crazy, but it's a fun little movie memorabilia type of item that I've had in my collection for a long time. So from Seven, this is what's in the box. Yeah, so yeah, that's kind of cool. That's just crazy, isn't it? And just bonkers. And this is not even in the movie, this scene, because they actually cut away from you. If you've seen any of this in the movie, it's so crazy. But you know what, though? I may have spoiled a little bit of Seven for you. If I haven't really spoiled, I tried to avoid as much spoilers as I could, but Seven is one of those classic films that if you've never seen it, I do recommend you go see it because this is a masterclass in filmmaking that, I mean, they gave us a lot of foundation for the future films that David Fincher would end up making. So with that, guys, what did you guys think? What do you think about all these movies? Essentially turning 30 this month. And I can't believe that these movies are turning 30. It's just crazy. There's some other movies I kept off the list, like honorable mentions, like, Showgirls, you know, that's also turning 30 this month too. But it's just one of the ones you can't really put that film on YouTube. There are so many great movies that came out in September of 1995. So, what do you guys think about any of these movies that came out in September of 1995? Did you see any of these? Which one is your favorite on this list? Did I miss one that you're like, oh man, you're going to talk about one of my favorite movies that also came out in September of 1995? Let me know in the comment section down below. And remember to hit the like, the subscribe, and the notification bell. That way you're always notified when a new video is posted. We're getting ready to get into October now, and we're going to have some really fun horror movies that we're going to be talking about in the month of October. And I can't wait to show you some of the stuff I have planned. So until next time, guys, this is JD with the Figgy Pop Collector Channel.
That concludes a Figgy Pop transmission.